This is a Hearthstone class course on Warrior. Armor is integral to Warrior. It is how you gain life, it is how you control the board. You can gain mana cheat from armor, you can gain damage from armor, you can kill minions from armor, you can expend armor, you can make it so you have your weapon gain attack from armor for combos. You can do so many things with armor. It is a tertiary resource outside of health and mana that Warrior has access to, unlike any other class, even Druid, because Warrior is completely designed around armor gain. Now, you might think, isn't that boring? And a lot of people agree. Armor is hard and tough to get through. It is defensive, and hell, does it make Warrior a strong defensive class. Then you have Enrage. Enrage is typically characterized by whirlwind effects, using cards such as Whirlwind, of course, but mainly Risky Skipper. Risky Skipper is the ultimate Enrage card, as it provides so much for your Enrage combos. Skipper, Armorsmith, and Razorfen Rockstar provide so much armor, of course, as well as it is two Menagerie cards. Menagerie and Enrage go hand in hand for combo warriors, as they allow you to do so many things like draw cards, gain armor, clear the board, gain attack, do damage to your opponent. They do it all. Of course, a big piece of Warrior as well is weapons. Weapons are integral to Warrior. They provide an offensive and defensive game plan depending on the style of weapon. You can have weapons that are very good at clearing minions, as well as weapons that are very good at killing your opponent. Weapons are also typically incredibly mana efficient in damage. Look at a card like Fiery War Axe. It is a 2 mana, 3/2 weapon, which means for 2 mana it deals 6 damage. Typically, 2 mana cards are dealing anywhere from 2 to 3 damage, 3 to 5 damage, 2 to 5 technically, so that is still incredibly above average. For a spell to do that much damage, it typically overloads you with Crackle. Then you have Charge as a sort of archaic mechanic that Warrior still holds on to very dearly. Charge itself is a very powerful combo card for cards like Remornia the Living Blade. Warsong Commander combos incredibly well with your Bloodsail Raiders, your Frothing Berserkers, or even your Power Sliders. This is a super aggressive set of cards that goes into Warrior. They just go face. Of course, Charge can trade, but why would you do that? Face is the place. This is incredibly powerful with things like Hand Buff as well. Crazed Wretch is another, and Grommash Health Scream, again, synergized with Enrage. Then lastly, of the core Warrior mechanics, you have Menagerie. Warrior is one of the heavily pushed Menagerie classes to have a lot of different tribes. We will go over the most prevalent ones soon, as it provides so much to Warrior. It provides card generation with things like Rockmaster Voon. It provides mana cheat with cards like Tenth Thrasher. And of course, the strongest card that you can think of in Warrior is Roaring Applause, which draws you so many cards based on your Menagerie. Warrior also makes great use of the 0 mana Menagerie cards that are in neutral, such as Ancient Totem or Target Dummy, even though it has its own mechs. That's how good Menagerie is in Warrior. Then, the first tribe that is very prevalent in Warrior is mechs. Mechs came into Warrior as early as Goblins versus Gnomes. They are incredibly defensively oriented on average. You have cards like Dr. Boom, which gives all your mechs rush, which makes them incredible for keeping the board in your favor and killing off opponent's minions. You have Dynamatic, which again is great for killing off minions. You have cards like Scrap Golem, which are great for defending you and giving you health back with armor. This is one of the non-expansion-based tribal supports that Warrior gets almost all the time. It is incredible for the class, and it shapes the class even to this day. As well as Dragons, with Alex Strauss's Champion being the first Dragon Synergy card in the Grand Tournament. Dragons are sadly the least supported tribe that Warrior gets, and it's hard to justify giving them a play style because, dragons do a lot of different things. It's like I'm saying, because there's so few, it's hard to say what they specifically are good at compared to pirates. Pirates, of course, are incredibly aggressive. You have cards like N'Zoth First Mate, which summons your patches and gives you a weapon. You have Ankar, which draws you your pirates and deals damage face. You have Raid the Docks, which was so incredible that it made an aggro deck happy to skip their turn 1 just for this card. Let that tell you how powerful Raid-the-Docks is. Pirates are integral to Warrior's design. They've been around forever. Pirate Warrior is one of the most iconic decks for Warrior of all time. And yes, this is finally the last menagerie. Then we have Hand Buff from the mean streets of Gadgetzan. Just like all the grimy goons, Warrior has a lot of hand buff cards. Conditioning really made Hand Buff Warrior amazing during Barons and Stormwind. Anima Extractor as an Enrage card really proves how powerful Enrage is, that you can have other types of cards that benefit from it. This archetype doesn't see very much play very often because it's not too supported, but it is definitely one to look out for. Then you have Taunt. Of course, the first real synergistic Taunt card came in TGT for Warrior with Sparring Partner, but the real Taunt Warrior started in Ungora with Fireplume's Heart. You get Sulfuras, which is a 3-mana 4/2 weapon that gives you a 2-mana hero power that fires a Ragnaros Blast to deal 8 damage. Battle Pick extended on that sort of inevitability for this defensive game plan of taunts by giving you an infinite durability weapon to chip down your opponent and to kill minions with. Taunt Warrior is a super iconic deck that people have adored for years. They still play Fireplume's Heart even though it isn't very good. Then you have Recruit, or Big Warrior, depending on what you want to call it. This is an archetype all about cheating out big minions. You have Cowardly Grunt, which really is what took this archetype off during United in Stormwind. Cowardly Grunt let you cheat out your Troublemakers, let you cheat out your Rattlegores. It let you do so much. You had Woe Cleaver being printed in Kobolds and Catacombs, and although it wasn't that strong of a card, it still provided so much. An 8-mana card that could effectively cheat out 10 mana worth of minions if you got it off properly does a lot. You beat your opponent in the face, and it's really hard to clear these minions. Then you have Rush. Rush is a super tempo-oriented keyword that allows you to play a minion and have it kill other minions on the same turn. It's easier to use than a Battle Cry that gives your minions some form of damage, as it's more applicable. Rush is also just heavily supported in Warrior. You have cards like Town Crier to draw Rush cards, Spirit of the Rhino to make them immune, ETC God of Metal to turn Rush into an OTK deck. There's so much that Rush provides for Warrior, and it is a super integral keyword for the class. This keyword will always be in Warrior as it lives and breathes. Other classes get Rush cards occasionally. Warrior bleeds Rush. Then you have Bomb Warrior. Bomb Warrior was released in Rise of Shadows to great love. This is a fan favorite mechanic where you take your Wrench Caliber, your Clockwork Goblin, and then you just beat your opponent in the face. You tempo them down, and you burn bombs in their deck. The bombs, when they're drawn, they deal 5 damage. They shut off Reno cards, and that was a big beneficiary to this archetype, shutting down Reno cards through shuffling. And it was a huge importance during Saviors of Uldum and Descent of Dragons, as the Highlander cards are being printed for Uldum. But in patch 29.2.2.198608, Reno Lone Ranger was nerfed, and due to its power level in decks that run duplicates. Blizzard chose the wording to make it so if your deck starts with no duplicates, to trigger the Highlander effect, which effectively killed all anti-Reno decks possible in shuffling, which is very weird considering that in the literal next patch of the game, they reintroduce bombs to Warrior and to Standard, a way to shut down Reno decks. I don't understand it, but there it is. Then you have Galakrond. Galakrond, the Unbreakable, was the most aggressively oriented of all of the Galakrons due to Galakrond's Might, giving you 3 attack whenever you trigger an Invoke. If you don't know what Invoke does, it is just triggering the hero power of Galakrond while Galakrond is in your deck. Then you would be able to draw minions, multiple minions, up to 4, give them +4/+4, make them incredibly tall, so they are hard to kill, and you just beat your opponent down with it. It was incredibly powerful, and it is definitely a fan favorite. Frenzy. Frenzy, although being quite unique, is definitely not up there for what most people think of when they think of the warrior class, but if I didn't put this in here, Magma Rager would have killed me, so here it is. Frenzy is incredible on tempo. You have cards like Stonemaw Anchorman that have a condition to draw a card, as well as being a very well-statted rush minion. Kresh, Lord of Turtling, gives you incredible amounts of armor as well as a powerful weapon, and then they can be resummoned by Overlord Sourfang, which not only damages the whole board, gives you a lot of stats, and hell, this card does everything. Frenzy is very similar to Enrage, except that it only triggers once, which is why the effects are typically stronger on average, but man, Frenzy is a super niche, I would say, archetype for Warrior, and I do believe that if we are ever going to reprint Frenzy, Warrior should get these cards. They are very cool, in my opinion. Then you have Black Rock and Roll. This is, of course, a harder to pull off Warrior deck style, where you play Black Rock and Roll and Lorthamar Theron to buff up the minions in your deck rather than your hand. Very similar to hand buff in that case. And then you have cards like Trench Stalker, Decimator Olgra, or cards with charge that can then go face and hit your opponent in the face and be huge, gigantic minions that are incredibly hard to clear. This deck is a fan favorite by many, but man, is it not very good. I will not lie to you. So watch out for that if you ever want to play a cool combo warrior deck. Then you have Rifts. Rifts are a 3-card little combo that all work together, where they make use of the finale mechanic to make another riff. You play Verse Riff on 1, and then you play Chorus Riff exactly on turn 3, you will draw that minion, give it +3/+3, and then gain 2 attack and 2 armor. Riffs are controversial in Hearthstone, to say the least. They had been buffed because they were just terrible on release. Verse Riff was 2 mana, even though it was about as strong as a classic card. Eventually it was buffed to 1, but Rifts are definitely a minor little combo that Warrior has, and it's definitely worth mentioning. Then you have Excavate. Excavate is a keyword that is very, very heavy on value. They are typically overcosted to make up for the fact that they will give you a undercosted card. If you play Blast Charge, it's going to destroy a minion and excavate a treasure. Destroy a damaged minion is 1 mana and execute, but if you excavate a 1-cost treasure and get almost anything, it will be worth the mana cost, because those treasures are, on average, worth way more mana than they are. You have a 1 mana 2/3 with Rush. You have a 1 mana deal 3 to anything spell. You have all of the Azurite minions, which are 4 mana 5/5s on top of their effects. And then, of course, the Azurite minions. Warriors is the Azurite Ox, which is 4 mana, 5/5 Elemental Beast. Discover 2 8-cost minions, summon them. That is insane amount of stats for that low mana. This is why Excavate is so prevalent in Standard, because getting a lot of stats, getting a lot of value is incredibly important, unlike in Wild, where stats and value don't matter. Then you have Highlander with Deep Miner Bran. And hoo boy, this is a very controversial deck. People have been despising this for a long time. Deep Miner Bran has been nerfed. Reno Lone Ranger has been nerfed. Boomboss Throgrun was buffed. Don't ask me. This is the deck that caused the Reno Lone Ranger and subsequent Highlander cards to have the "if your deck started with no duplicates" tagline, because you would just run duplicates. Warrior had an insane amount of draw in Standard at the time, and it was nerfed because of this. This is the epitome of grinding your opponent out, though. You play Boomboss Thogrun, it'll shuffle 6 TNT into your opponent's deck that destroy a card in your opponent's hand, deck, and battlefield. That is 18 cards. Nothing in the game is that good at grinding out your opponent for 1 card. This is the ultimate Control Warrior if you have loved Control Warrior in the past, so hop on it before it gets gutted and removed from the game. And conclusion. This took so much longer than all my other PowerPoints to set up. I revised it multiple times. It's taken me about 3 hours, which for most would sound like nothing, but you have to understand these PowerPoints are typically 5 minutes long. This one, although it's only Going to run about 15 minutes. Ooh, man. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Shadows are rising again!
Darker than they've ever been.